Welcome back to the Mad Genius Thesis, where we explore the link between creativity and mental illness.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be looking at
Yes.
Scott Fitzgerald,
The
man who
The jazz age?
who captured the jazz age, but
Yeah.
also battled a lot of his own personal demons.
So you know what's really interesting about Fitzgerald is that even as a child, he seemed to have this awareness of social dynamics in detail that would later fuel his writing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
according to Matthew J. Bruccoli's biography, some sort of epic grandeur, when Fitzgerald was only 10 years old,
Wow.
he wrote about his summer camp experience with amazing precision.
Now, wait a minute. A 10-year-old writing a diary. That's...
Wait, it's not just a diary.
Oh,
It's
no.
really not just a diary.
Hey.
He names specific people, recalls songs they sang,
Oh, wow.
describes activities with such vividness that it's unusual for someone his age. This suggests that he had an early understanding of narrative structure and an almost photographic memory.
So, I mean, are we saying that this attention to detail foreshadowed his literary genius, or
Well,
could it be connected to something else?
that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Bruccoli talks about Fitzgerald's family background as having, quote, exaggerated ancestral pretensions.
Okay.
It's a fancy way of saying they believed they were more prestigious than they actually were, particularly his mother's side of the family.
Oh, okay.
They clung to this idea of a grand lineage, but their financial situation didn't exactly reflect that grandeur.
So he was growing up with this pressure to maintain a certain image.
Absolutely. And
Even
he
if-
constantly felt the need to prove himself,
Yeah, even if the reality didn't match up.
especially in social settings.
I could see how that kind of environment could shape someone's personality,
Yeah.
especially if you're already inclined towards observation and analysis.
Right. And it's not just his family. Think about the figures who influenced him early on.
Okay.
Like Monsignor Fay. He was a clergyman who recognized Fitzgerald's talent when he was still a boy,
Yeah.
encouraged his writing, challenged him intellectually,
Oh, wow.
introduced him to literary circles. He seems to have played a crucial role in nurturing that spark of creativity.
It's amazing how influential certain people can be
He really is.
when they spot potential that others might overlook.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Fitzgerald might have taken a different path without Fay's guidance?
You know, it's impossible to say,
Yeah,
but his influence is undeniable.
absolutely.
It's interesting to think about how different his life might have been if he hadn't had that early support.
But even with encouragement, there were still hurdles, like his time at Princeton, for example.
Princeton.
Yeah,
You'd think that would be a breeding ground for a budding writer like Fitzgerald.
you would think.
What happened there?
He went in with such high hopes.
Uh-huh.
And, he did achieve some success. Okay.
But he didn't quite reach the heights he envisioned for himself. I think that experience left him with this lingering sense of unfulfilled potential
Yeah.
that kind of haunted him throughout his life.
I guess even for someone as talented as Fitzgerald,
Yeah,
there are always those what-ifs that linger in the back of your mind.
absolutely.
So we've got this young man,
Yeah,
acutely aware of social dynamics, driven to succeed,
right.
but also harboring some deep-seated insecurities. And then
There and enter.
Zelda Sayre,
Okay.
a force of nature.
Yeah.
Even before she met Fitzgerald, in Montgomery, Alabama, she was already pushing boundaries, defying social norms.
Oh, wow.
Imagine
What do you mean?
a young woman in the early 1900s
Yeah.
smoking on a streetcar,
Oh, my gosh.
completely unconcerned with societal expectations.
Yeah.
That was Zelda.
Wow.
She sounds like a total rebel.
She does.
I can see why she captivated someone like Fitzgerald.
Yeah, but their relationship
Their relationship.
was a whirlwind of passion and drama, right?
Both were incredibly creative. They were driven by ambition
Yeah.
and this shared love for the finer things in life. This led to a lifestyle fueled by excess,
Okay.
particularly with alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
which ultimately took a toll on them both.
It's almost like a classic cautionary tale, the price of fame and fortune.
Right, but Zelda was a star in her own right.
Yeah.
For their marriage.
Good.
Zelda was the one in the spotlight, the free spirit defying convention. But then, as Fitzgerald's success grew, she found herself increasingly relegated to the role of the wife of the famous author. And it's a dynamic we see even today. It must have been a difficult transition for her.
Especially since she had her own creative aspirations.
Right.
I've heard that she was a writer and a dancer.
Yeah.
It must have been incredibly frustrating.
It must have been.
To have your own dreams overshadowed
Yeah.
by your partner's success.
It was a complicated situation for both of them.
Yeah?
Zelda even wrote a novel, Save Me the Waltz,
Okay.
which drew heavily from their shared experiences,
Okay.
causing a major rift in their relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so their creativity became a source of tension and competition.
It's like that adage, two artists in a marriage never works.
Right.
It's playing out in real time.
It is, and it raises questions about the nature of inspiration, especially when drawing from personal experiences. You know, where do you draw the line between individual expression and shared history?
Yeah, especially in a relationship as intense as theirs.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're living life at that level of intensity, it's hard to separate the art from the artist.
Right.
But we're starting to see
how
this personal turmoil might be feeding into Fitzgerald's writing.
Definitely. There's a recurring theme of self-destruction in his work that mirrors his own struggles in this side of paradise. We see hints of the social climbing and disillusionment that would become hallmarks of his later novels.
Interesting.
And The Beautiful and Damned, with its cautionary tale of Anthony Patch's decline.
Yeah.
Seems almost prophetic when you consider the trajectory of Fitzgerald's own life.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's exploring these dark undercurrents of the American dream, the allure and the potential for its corrosive effects.
And in The Great Gatsby, he dissects that dream with remarkable precision, right?
Exactly. The longing for something unattainable, the pursuit of wealth and status, and the emptiness that can accompany even the grandest achievements. It's all there.
It's all there, and those themes are still so relevant today.
Absolutely.
It's like he was tapping into something fundamental about the human condition, this constant striving for something more.
Right, and what's striking is that he doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of that pursuit.
Yeah.
He shows us the beauty and the ugliness, the allure and the disillusionment in equal measure.
Okay.
And this is where his own struggles with addiction.
And Zelda's deteriorating mental health begin to play a more prominent role in his writing.
So the personal becomes intertwined with the artistic.
You could say that.
He's not just observing and commenting on society.
Right.
He's wrestling with these demons on the page.
There's a famous quote where Fitzgerald tells Zelda, "I think the best thing you and I can do is to write a book while we're away."
Wow.
Even amidst the chaos of their lives, writing seems to have been a constant for him.
Yeah, do you think it was an escape?
Perhaps both?
A way to process his own emotions and experiences?
In Tender is the Night, we see a clear shift. The story becomes more introspective, more focused on the psychological complexities of its characters.
Okay.
And we know that he was grappling with Zelda's illness during the writing of this book.
So he's processing this incredibly painful experience in real time while trying to create this complex and ambitious novel.
It was a trying time for him, no doubt.
He was dealing with his own issues with alcohol, financial instability, the emotional toll of Zelda's condition. And yet, in a way, it feels like his greatest work emerged from this crucible of pain and struggle.
This is where that connection between genius and mental illness becomes even more intriguing.
It does.
Did his struggles fuel his creativity, or did his creative pursuits exacerbate his inner turmoil?
Yeah, it's like a chicken or the egg scenario.
There is.
And this is where his crack-up essays become so crucial to understanding Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
He was dissecting his own emotional and creative breakdown with a raw honesty that was almost unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Those essays offer us a glimpse into the mind of an artist grappling with the darker side of his own brilliance.
Before we dive into those essays, though,
Yeah.
we need to take a closer look at Zelda.
We do.
Her story is just as fascinating.
It is.
Just as tragic. And I think it's crucial to understanding the full picture of Fitzgerald's life and work.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back to explore the complexities of Zelda.
Right.
The muse, the artist, and the woman who ultimately became a symbol of both Fitzgerald's greatest love and his deepest despair.
I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
We've been exploring S. Scott Fitzgerald's life and his work. And it's clear that his relationship with Zelda Sayre played a significant role in both his personal struggles
Absolutely.
and his creative output. You mentioned earlier that she was a writer herself.
She was.
Which must have added another layer of complexity to their dynamic.
Definitely, Zelda was a gifted writer, and her novel, Save Me the Waltz, is a powerful example of her talent.
Okay.
However, it also became a source of tension between her and Fitzgerald.
Why did he feel threatened by her success?
It was more complicated than just simple jealousy.
Okay.
Fitzgerald was furious when Save Me the Waltz was published.
Oh, really?
He felt that Zelda had used their shared experiences, their personal life, as fodder for her novel.
So it was a question of ownership. He felt like she was encroaching on his territory.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
You see, he believed she had taken characters and events from their lives, even some he had already used in his own writing, and incorporated them into her work without his permission.
I can see how that would create a huge rift.
It did.
Especially given their already volatile relationship.
Yes, and it raises some interesting questions about the ethics of drawing inspiration from real life, especially when it involves another person's experiences.
Yeah. Where do you draw the line between personal expression and exploiting shared history?
Right, exactly.
It's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how Zelda felt about it all.
It does.
Did she see it as a betrayal of their relationship, or was she simply trying to find her own voice as an artist?
That's the thing. Unfortunately, we don't have Zelda's direct perspective on the matter.
Okay.
Her voice is often overshadowed by Fitzgerald's in the historical narrative.
Yeah.
But there are glimpses of her perspective in her own writing, her letter, and accounts from those who knew her.
Okay.
And one thing that comes through clearly is that Zelda was a complex and intelligent woman. Far more than just a muse or a tragic figure.
So we've got this power couple.
We do.
Both brilliant, both struggling with their own demons, and their creative endeavors become entangled with their personal turmoil. It's like a recipe for disaster.
And that's what we see playing out in Fitzgerald's life and work.
Yeah.
He was increasingly reliant on alcohol. His behavior became erratic, and Zelda's mental health continued to deteriorate.
Right.
Yet he kept writing, pouring his experiences, his anxieties, his observations into his work.
It's like he was driven to create, even as his world seemed to be crumbling around him.
That's the paradox of the mad genius, isn't it?
Right.
The very things that threaten to destroy them also fuel their creative fire.
Yeah.
And in Fitzgerald's case, this tension is palpable in his writing. His characters, often beautiful and damned, are drawn to the allure of wealth and status, but ultimately find themselves disillusioned and broken.
Yeah. It's almost as if he was predicting his own downfall.
It's like he was looking into a crystal ball.
Yeah, and that sense of foreboding of impending tragedy is what makes his work so compelling.
Absolutely.
We're drawn to the beauty, the glamour, but there's always this underlying sense of darkness, of the inevitable fall from grace.
Precisely. Fitzgerald captures that duality brilliantly. He shows us the allure of the American dream, but he also exposes its dark underbelly, the cost of ambition, the emptiness that can lurk beneath the surface of success.
You mentioned earlier that the Great Depression had a profound impact on Fitzgerald.
It did.
How did that manifest in his work?
Yeah.
Did it change his perspective on the themes he was exploring?
Absolutely. The Great Depression shattered the illusion of the Roaring Twenties.
Yeah.
The carefree extravagance that had defined Fitzgerald's early success.
Right.
He saw firsthand the consequences of that excess. The economic hardship, the disillusionment, the loss of innocence.
So he wasn't just observing these societal shifts. He was living them, feeling them deeply.
Exactly. And this newfound awareness, this sense of loss and disillusionment permeates his later work. His characters become more introspective, more aware of the fragility of their own dreams. The writing itself takes on a darker, more somber tone.
And this is where his essays from this period, particularly the crack-up essays, become so important.
Those essays are like a window into Fitzgerald's soul. He's grappling with his own failures, his addictions, his sense of emotional bankruptcy.
Right.
He dissects his own psyche with brutal honesty, laying bare his vulnerabilities and anxieties.
It's amazing that he was so willing to expose himself in that way, especially at a time when mental health was so stigmatized. Did those essays have an impact on how people viewed him?
The crack-up essays were controversial, to say the least.
Oh, I bet.
Some saw them as a sign of weakness, of a man crumbling under the weight of his own success.
Wow.
Others, however, recognized the courage and the honesty in his self-assessment.
It sounds like he was trying to make sense of his own struggles, not just for himself, but for his readers as well.
That's what makes those essays so powerful.
Yeah.
He's not offering solutions or easy answers. He's simply sharing his experience, his raw and unflinching examination of his own psyche.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he opens up a space for others to grapple with their own complexities, their own inner demons.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm a mess, but I'm still here. I'm still trying to figure things out.
Right.
And in that vulnerability, there's a strange kind of strength.
I think that's what resonates with readers even today.
Mm.
We see ourselves in his struggles, in his honesty, in his refusal to shy away from the darker aspects of human experience.
He wasn't afraid to show us the cracks, the flaws, messiness of it all.
And in doing so, he created a body of work that continues to challenge and inspire us.
Yeah.
His novels, his short stories, his essays, they all speak to this fundamental question of what it means to be human, to strive for greatness, to love and lose, to experience both the heights of ecstasy and the depths of despair.
And that's the legacy of F. Scott Fitzgerald, isn't it?
Yeah.
He showed us that even in our brokenness, even in our failures, there's still beauty, there's still meaning, there's still something worth fighting for.
He reminds us that the human experience is a complex tapestry of light and shadow.
Yeah.
And it's in the interplay of those forces that we find our truest selves.
And that's a powerful message, especially for those of us who struggle with our own creative demons, our own inner turmoil.
It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles.
Yeah.
And that even the greatest artists have wrestled with the same doubts, the same anxieties, the same sense of inadequacy.
Fitzgerald's story is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, the resilience of the creative impulse, and the importance of finding meaning and purpose, even in the midst of chaos and despair.
He showed us that it's okay to be broken, that it's okay to struggle, and that sometimes it's in those moments of darkness that we discover our greatest strength.
And that's a message that will continue to resonate with readers for generations to come. So we've been discussing F. Scott Fitzgerald, his turbulent life and this brilliant, often haunting work. And we've seen how his personal struggles with addiction, his complicated relationship with Zelda, and this changing social landscape of America all played a part in shaping his creative output.
And what's remarkable is even as his personal life was spiraling, his commitment to his craft never wavered. Fitzgerald was a writer to his core. It was almost as if writing was his way of making sense of the world, you know, grappling with the complexities of the human experience.
We talked about how his later works, like Tender is the Night, reflected deeper introspection and more nuanced exploration of psychological themes.
Yeah.
You mentioned that he was drawing inspiration from real-life figures that he encountered on the Riviera.
I did.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Certainly, Fitzgerald and Zelda spent a significant amount of time among the wealthy American expatriate community on the French Riviera in the 1920s.
Okay.
He was fascinated by this group.
Their lavish lifestyles.
Okay.
Their complex relationships. And this underlying sense of disillusionment that seemed to permeate their world.
So he was once again blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
Exactly.
Using his own experiences and observations as a springboard for his creative explorations.
Precisely. In his notes for Tender is the Night, he specifically mentions drawing inspiration from people like Gerald and Sarah Murphy.
Okay.
A wealthy American couple who were known for their extravagant parties and their circle of artistic friends. He even said that Dick Diver, the protagonist of Tender is the Night, was a composite of himself and Gerald Murphy.
It's fascinating how he took these real-life figures and transformed them into fictional characters.
It is.
Imbuing them with his own insights and interpretations. Do you think he was trying to create a portrait of an era of commentary on the American dream gone awry?
I think there's definitely an element of social commentary in Tender is the Night.
Okay.
Fitzgerald was disillusioned by the excesses of the jazz age.
He saw how this pursuit of wealth and pleasure could ultimately lead to emptiness and despair.
So he was holding up a mirror to society.
Yeah.
Showing us the cracks beneath the glittering facade.
You could say that. But he wasn't just pointing fingers.
Right.
I think he was also trying to understand these characters, their motivations, their vulnerabilities.
Okay.
You see, he was fascinated by the complexities of human nature.
Right.
And he wanted to explore those complexities in his writing.
And this exploration often led him to dark places.
It did.
We've talked about his own struggles with addiction and Zelda's deteriorating mental health.
Right.
How did those personal challenges manifest in his work?
They became intertwined with his creative process. In Tender's the Night, for example, we see Dick Diver, a promising young psychiatrist, gradually unraveling as he becomes entangled with the wealthy and dysfunctional Warren family. It's a story of love, loss, and the corrosive effects of wealth and privilege.
Right.
And it's hard not to see parallels to Fitzgerald's own life, his own descent into despair.
Yeah, it's like he was using his writing to exercise his own demons to
Hey.
process the pain and confusion he was experiencing in his personal life?
There's a rawness,
Yeah.
a vulnerability in his later work that suggests that he was digging deep into his own psyche, exploring the dark recesses of his mind. And this is where the crack-up essays become so illuminating.
Yes, those essays are incredibly powerful.
Hmm.
You mentioned earlier that they were controversial when they were first published.
They were.
Why was that? What made them so unsettling for readers at the time?
Well, Fitzgerald was incredibly candid in those essays.
Yeah.
He talked openly about his struggles with alcoholism, his feelings of failure, his sense of emotional exhaustion.
Right.
This kind of raw self-examination was rare, especially for a public figure like Fitzgerald.
It was like he was breaking a taboo,
It was.
talking about things that were considered shameful and private.
Exactly. He was challenging societal norms,
Right.
exposing the fragility beneath the facade of success. And for some readers, that was uncomfortable, even threatening.
But for others, it must have been incredibly liberating to see someone so famous and successful acknowledging their own struggles,
Absolutely.
their own humanity.
And that's what makes those essays so enduring.
Right.
They offer a glimpse into the mind of a brilliant artist wrestling with his own demons.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they invite us to confront our own vulnerabilities, our own complexities.
It's like he's giving us permission to be imperfect,
Yeah.
to acknowledge our own struggles, to embrace the messiness of human experience.
And that's a powerful message,
Yeah.
especially in a culture that often values perfection and success above all else.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and work of F. Scott Fitzgerald,
Okay.
what do you think is his most enduring legacy? What lessons can we learn from his triumphs and his tragedies?
I think Fitzgerald reminds us that genius and madness are often intertwined, that creativity can spring from the darkest corners of our minds.
He shows us that the human experience is a tapestry of light and shadow, and that even the most brilliant minds can be shadowed by doubt and despair.
But he also reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there's still hope, there's still beauty, there's still the possibility of redemption.
His work continues to resonate with readers because it speaks to the universal truths of human experience.
Yes.
The longing for love and connection, the pursuit of dreams, the inevitability of loss, and the resilience of the human spirit.
Fitzgerald's life and work serve as a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
a reminder of the dangers of excess and the fragility of fame. But they also offer a message of hope, a testament to the enduring power of creativity and the importance of finding meaning and purpose even in the face of adversity.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of F. Scott Fitzgerald, the man who captured the spirit of the Jazz Age and left behind a literary legacy that continues to captivate and inspire readers generations later.
It was a pleasure.